guys, welcome. Another episode of the Well Balanced series. We're on episode 40, which is like crazy to me. I'm super pumped today to talk to Courtney from Courtney Keeping Balance, and she's somebody who I've followed for a while and is absolutely killing it, but just all about fitness and motherhood and cyclical health. These are all things that she is extremely passionate about, and excited to chat with her and just, hear all about her perspective from becoming a mother and just cyclical fitness in general. So here we go. I'm gonna see if she can hop in and we'll get started. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Technology. Come on.
Hi.
Hi, Courtney. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. Sorry. It's always like your head shrinks on this thing.
I know. And I'm still like catching my breath. I just slid into my chair. I just put my kids down for the nap. So I'm like, I made it. So I'm like out of breath still. So pardon me.
Totally fine. It's literally like super chill and just, appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I've been watching your series for forever now. And I was like, oh, she invited me. So you're the best.
Well, that means a lot. I've definitely tried to keep up with a bunch of women and conversations, and they're all on YouTube too for anybody that wants to watch. But yeah, so basically just kind of, again, I love hearing different perspectives. I love talking to different women about what they've been through. And I think just our unlearning of everything that we've gone through with regards to like diet culture, fitness, and from trainer to trainer. I love talking to other trainers as well, because from an Orange Theory background, had a very similar route with all of that. And so love seeing how we've changed that. And I love that you've moved on to motherhood, and I have not been there yet, but really seeing how you're bringing that into that, because I think so many women need to be reminded and been given grace for all the changes that are happening.
Yeah.
So I admire you so much for what you've done, what you've built with all of your business. Keep killing it. I'm so excited to chat. But so we'll start with an introduction and then just kind of see about you, what kind of got you into this space. I know you were a registered nurse, so interested in that. And then we'll kind of dive in. I did get some questions from the audience as well that we'll dive into too. So take it away.
Okay, cool. So I'm Courtney. I am a fitness nurse. So my background is, well, first of all, I went through a bachelor's program to get my bachelor's in science in community health and nutrition. From there, I was like, I didn't want to be an RD or registered dietitian, because I was also struggling with an eating disorder at the time. And it was just it was very difficult for me at the time to figure out what was actually a passion for nutrition versus an unhealthy obsession with it because of my disorder. So I decided to move away from that route, and I went to nursing school. So I became a nurse, and I worked in the ER for 4 years. And I worked with, the sickest of the sick. And I had always been passionate about preventative health and just wellness in general. So I was just like, how do we get these people from not ever being here in the first place? Like, I was like, this is too late, right? Like, they're already here in the emergency room. Like, they needed all of this before they got here. So anyways, I was just pretty frustrated working in the ER, honestly. And I came from a background of gymnastics, competitive gymnastics. So I've been an athlete for my whole life up until that point. And it was this very strange intersection of being an ER nurse and having this athletic background. And now I was pregnant, and we came to this point where I was like, what am I doing here? Like, how am I going to move forward? I had all of these, it just felt like this big cluster of a cloud of things going on. And it was going to be a storm if I didn't figure out my ish and start addressing things head on and changing my approach. So I was like, I knew that ER nursing wasn't going to be the long game for me. And so eventually, when we moved across the country, I had 2 babies at this point. I had this blank slate. And so that's when I decided to start Keeping Balance. And that's also at the same time I started doing cyclical fitness for myself. And then eventually started seeing how it had completely just 180 my experience with fitness. And so that's kind of where I am now. So that's your quick-winded. Yeah, there's my 29 years in a nutshell.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, where can I start?
Yeah.
No, totally, very much relate to a lot of that stuff. And again, the prevention, there's just so many questions I think people are, and finally, we're starting to ask more questions. We're starting to figure things out more. And I love that women are starting to kind of learn more about their bodies, but also, we're digging deeper, we're asking why, and we're finding things that fulfill us.
So I love that you have changed your trajectory and have accomplished that, because I think that's admirable for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with regards to like fitness, like just in general, back then versus now. So what are some things that you did before, whether it was doing fasted workouts or chronic hit, those types of things that it was what you knew was right and best for your body, and then what has kind of changed just in a generic standpoint, not necessarily with motherhood, but just like fitness in general.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna 1 second, because my 4-year-old is next door screaming that there's blood coming out of his nose. So
Go for it.
apologize. This might be like a 10-second break. Let me just run up next door real quick.
No worries at all. Casual. Well, for those listening, if you have other episodes that you want to hear from my Well Balanced series, you can go to my Instagram channel and watch them there. There's so many episodes on gut health and women's health in general, hormones, all of that kind of thing. And then they're also on YouTube as well, so you can check out the episodes there as well if you want to watch. Yay!
Okay,
No
I'm
worries.
so sorry.
Okay?
I'm so sorry. He gets
totally
bloody
fine
sometimes. Okay, so where I was with fitness versus now. So the things that I was doing before, so I was actually lifting at first, but I was doing it like almost 6 days a week consistently. And then I got into CrossFit, and I was very heavily involved in the world of CrossFit. Like I was obsessed with it. I loved it. And I loved it in a sense, like there were tons of positives to it, because I got to change my perspective from working out for aesthetics to doing it from a functional standpoint. But there was always, it just didn't feel right, because my body was not agreeing with it. I was doing CrossFit like 5 times a week, and the workouts are extremely, extremely intense, right? Like they're so draining. And I was only able to do my workout for the whole day and like nothing else. Like if I was going to plan to work out that day, I had to take everything off my calendar, because I knew I would be like on the couch out of commission. And like, I knew that wasn't right, but I thought that it was something wrong with me, and that I just wasn't fit enough or working hard enough. And so I would continue to push harder, but then it would flip around and I would resent exercise, right? So like I would go hard, hard, hard. And then I would just break down, and I hated exercise. I didn't want to go near a gym. I didn't want to touch a gym. I didn't even want to say the word out. I didn't want that word in my mouth, right? And it was just this horrible cycle. And so then now what it looks like instead is weightlifting and some cross training involved, but it is like, I mean, depending on where I'm at in my cycle, I'm either working out 2-3 times a week or sometimes 4 times a week. And there is never a period where I feel like I've fallen off the wagon, because I know that fitness looks different in different seasons of your life. And we have different sizes of seasons in our life now, because we have like, the seasons within the month of our menstrual cycle. And then we have different seasons that our kids are going through, that, our work schedules, just all these different things. And it's not a matter of being on or off a wagon, so to speak, but it's just a matter of staying consistent with your lens zoomed way, 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 way out. So it's still a lot of weightlifting, and some of my workouts look a little CrossFit-esque, but it's mostly the approach, it's the frequency, and of course the consistency, because I'm no longer resenting exercise and like not going to the gym for months on end.
Right. No, I think it's important to have that balance, because again, life is going to always happen, and I think that yes, consistency is very important, but you have to be real with yourself. And if you get out for a walk, that's still validating. It's still great. Like neat movement is something I talk with clients a lot about. It's like if you're moving around your house and you're doing chores, you're still moving, and it's still valuable. So we have such a checklist of like, I need to do an hour at the gym, lifting weights, sweating my ass off. And it's like, that's not necessarily what determines that, as I know.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, we'll kind of touch on cyclical fitness too. We'll start there. So kind of breaking that down for the audience just very briefly, kind of like what that looks like, and how and why that's so supportive for us, especially as women.
Yeah, totally. So cyclical fitness in a nutshell is exercising in accordance with the 4 phases of your menstrual cycle. We know the menstrual cycle is divided into 2 main halves, right? The follicular half and the luteal half, but we also have the events of menstruation and ovulation. So we can consider those your 4 phases. And from there, as you move throughout the 4 phases, your body is a different environment internally, whether, that has to do with your insulin sensitivity, your recovery, your performance, your motivation, and your drive. So all of these things are changing throughout our month. And when we work out in accordance with that and kind of align sort of traditional doctrine of strength training and exercise, and then we kind of line it up to best with each phase, it's the game changer that we are finally waking up to, because that's what opens the door to consistency, and consistency as a female, because consistency for your husband or your boyfriend is going to look a lot different for us. So we are
Right.
being consistent, but just in our own way, because our body is fluctuating so much, and it's okay. And it's not a weakness. It's not like your downfall. But when you work with this, you're actually getting more out of your workouts. Your workouts are more productive because you're not fighting against the tide, essentially. And you are able to get more out of it because it feels better. Like, exercise is supposed to feel good, but if I'm being told to do this HIIT workout and I'm on cycle day 25, that's not going to feel good. And so why am I going to feel like, I want to come back and do this over and over and over again? Like, that's not how humans work. And so it's just making fitness more accessible, really, to women. So that's what I love about it.
No, yeah, I'm definitely, the fact that I didn't even know that going into fitness, like in general, is
Yeah.
so crazy to me, because I used to do the HIIT all the time. And yeah, sure, I looked my best, but I was dying inside. My body was hurting, was sick all the time. Body temperature was so low, all those things that I think we don't realize are so important.
Yeah,
So
totally.
can you give like a brief example of like exercises you would do during those phases, and just kind of how, to change your fitness routine based on those phases?
Yeah, definitely. So you can do any exercise that you want during each phase, but it's mainly your approach and how you're breaking it down in terms of like the variables. So what your load is, what your rest is, what your like perceived exertion is. So in the menstrual phase, that's when I like to take things as my deload week. So that's when if I'm weightlifting, that's when I would be lifting my lowest weights, and I'd be working more like stability exercises. And then as you move into the follicular phase, your energy is rising, estrogen's going up, your testosterone's going up. So that's when you can take it up a notch with your intensity. So you can be lifting heavier. You are building muscle more efficiently here because of those anabolic hormones at play. So weightlifting is perfect. And then as you go into your ovulatory phase, that's when I hit my peak or my max out for the month. So that's when you're working at your highest intensity. HIIT would be appropriate here. Your hardest cardio sessions, those typical workouts where you are sweating in a puddle on the floor, right? That's totally appropriate in your ovulatory phase. And then as you get into your luteal phase, that's when we have this metabolic shift and we're using fat a bit more efficiently. So that's when you can do your endurance efforts. So your longer, maybe your slower but longer runs, or your what you would typically think of as a woman's exercise of like lowering the weight but doing more reps. So that would be really good for your luteal phase. And then as you get into that late luteal phase approaching menstruation, again, that's when you would come back full circle and you start to come back down and deload.
Perfect. Love that. Yeah. I think it's so nice because it gives women so much grace in spaces in those phases too. And again, can utilize the movement that gives them joy and not feel forced to be doing all of these things that they may not want to do.
Yeah.
So total side note question, but what's your favorite pre-workout snack? Like, I've always got that question, and I always like to ask that.
So I usually just like have regular meals. And then if I know that I haven't eaten in a while and I'm going to need something to fuel my workout more, I love to just get a squeezy pouch, like my kids' squeezy pouches, with those applesauce pouches, or like those like pureed squashes and stuff. Like I literally just like suck one of those down. And they're
nice.
and it's nice carbs. So like, let's go.
Can you touch on kind of like what the ideal, if people need support, pre-workout, what that would look like from a macronutrient standpoint and what you'd recommend?
Yeah, so definitely carbs. So carbs are going to be what fuels your movement, right? Because your body's going to use sugar first. And so for pre-workout, yes, you can add some protein in there, but you don't want to have too much protein and too much fat. So that's going to sit in your stomach and feel yucky during your workout. So if you're going to focus on anything during your pre-workout period, then carbs are it. And then post-workout is when I would introduce more protein with your carbs and your fats and all that stuff.
Perfect. I like that. Okay. So some red flags that you would speak to when women are finding a trainer that they want to work with.
Oh no, I could go off of this for like ever. Okay. Red
Top
flag.
two.
Okay. Oof, top two. Okay. Top two is probably like required progress pictures, like, or check-ins. So like every week you have to send your weight and your picture. Because that is, I mean, what information does that really give you when a woman's weight and appearance fluctuates naturally with a cycle? And that's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a neutral fact that happens. And so when your weight's fluctuating from week to week, like why does your trainer need to know that? So that for me, I'm
Right.
like, goodbye. The second thing is if your trainer is not periodizing with like monthly. So if you're doing the same intensity throughout your entire program with that trainer, peace out. Like that's not going to work because everybody, whether you're a man or a woman, you need to deload in your training. But
Right.
especially for women, you need that because we cannot sustain that level of intensity all the time with all of the additional work that's happening on inside of our bodies. Like that's the thing that I think women misunderstand is that it's not like we're weak. It's because your body is actually performing marvels inside, you know, under the surface. You can't see it. You can feel it a little bit, but what is happening inside your body is work. So in that luteal phase, you're burning through more calories. Your metabolism is higher. You need more fuel. And so it's not like, you know, oh, you're so frail, you have to just walk. It's that your body is a badass and it's working very hard to do what it's doing. And so we honor that, and that actually benefits us in the long run. Nobody wins when you're trying to override that and push through it, you know, month after month. Nobody wins.
Yeah. No, I think that again, like women becoming more aware of just how their body works and the beautiful beautiness, whatever that word is, like behind it, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Is so intricate and so great. And I think it helps you realize, you know, okay, yeah, during my menstrual phase, like it's okay to rest because I'm literally, you know, doing all these other things internally. This is what's happening. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm allowed to feel and be the way I am because of that. So
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so talking about like body changes that are happening, and this goes definitely into motherhood, you know, what kind of things did you experience? And I think that that's something that any client, pregnant, postpartum, or just not, you know, deals with. And the 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 mentality that, you know, if you are going to go and honor your cycle and honor your hormones, that you may need to gain weight and for your body to feel safe and to achieve that balance, you know, and especially working with women, again, like getting their BBT up and making sure everything's working, they're ovulating regularly, all of those things. And then, of course, wanting to achieve their goals and feel confident in themselves and sexy and all those things. So
Yeah.
what was your experience with that? And what would you say to those women?
Yeah. So for me, it was interesting for me because when I was not treating my body properly, over exercising, all of my disordered eating, my body held on to a lot more body fat. And that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like my body was in a very protective mode at that point. Then I went through pregnancy and my body changes were, again, like opposite of what people think. Like my first trimester, both times, I just essentially wasted away. I lost a ton of weight. And it was funny because people were complimenting me like, oh, you look great. Like pregnancy looks great on
Mm-hmm.
you. But I was like scared because at the same time, my OBGYN was concerned about his growth. And so we were getting more ultrasounds done saying, okay, is he growing okay? Because I just couldn't keep weight on at first. And so that was a body change that I wasn't expecting. Everyone's saying like, oh, you're going to gain so much weight. And that's a struggle for me. I struggled a lot going from I couldn't lose weight because of how I was treating myself to now I couldn't keep weight on at a time where I really wanted to and it was important to.
Right.
So that was a really interesting like mental shift that I had to deal with. But eventually, you know, everything was fine. He grew just fine. I was able to put on plenty of weight by the third trimester. But then after I had kids, it was like an internal shift because my pelvic floor did not do great with pregnancy. I had a lot of pelvic pain. I had SPD, and then I had a prolapse. So I had a bladder prolapse that made it very difficult to get back into weightlifting at first. And it was really scary. And I didn't even know about it for the longest time because no one talks about those things. And then let's just fast forward a little bit. When I got into cyclical fitness long term, that is when I actually saw myself at the lowest body fat that I've had and the highest muscle mass. So a lot of women do have to gain weight at first for their bodies to kind of feel safe, like you were saying, because at the end of the day, your body is going to first prioritize your individual survival, and then secondly, prioritize the survival of the species. And so a huge part of that is making sure that you have plenty of body fat so that you can ovulate and have a healthy pregnancy. If your body's like, this environment ain't it, like you're not going to ovulate. And so those biomarkers are so incredibly important for us to gauge how, you know, how we're doing in terms of how we're treating ourselves. So in terms of the mental shift, it's going to be very, you know, individual. It's everyone's going to have to handle that differently. But for me, it just took so much time. And it also, you know, speaking especially to motherhood, it gave me that permission to just show up how I was, as I was every day, and just trust the process, because it's not going to be overnight, no matter what change you're looking for. If you're trying to lose weight, not going to be overnight. If you're trying to gain weight, not going to be overnight. And so this approach, motherhood plus cyclical fitness, is just this unrelenting permission, just 100% like a sigh of relief, weight off my shoulders in terms of it's okay to show up as you are, who you are each day.
I love that so much. Do you feel like with postpartum in particular too, you know, there's so much pressure to get back to your pre-baby weight, and of course there's the comparison and all those things that occur. So what was kind of going through your mind then, and what would you say to women kind of going through that phase?
Yeah. First of all, if you are seeing those messages and feel that pressure from anything or anyone, you've got to put up your blinders. If it takes muting them or blocking them or saying, hey, like, we're not having this conversation, you've got to respect yourself enough to have those firm boundaries and not listen to that BS. But when you're going through postpartum and you've got this child, this human being that you have to now take care of and nurture, and you're trying to figure out how to take care of yourself. Maybe you have other kids, other toddlers that you're taking care of as well. That sort of it kind of gets pushed to the back burner just naturally by default, because there's no more space in your brain for that, right? Like now, especially having these changes, like with your pelvic floor, things so much come back to this place of being functional again. And so when you prioritize being functional and just being able to, like lift up your toddler and get up the stairs, and you're breastfeeding, like that is your main focus now. And so that aesthetic piece can come later, but you are pregnant for 40 weeks and postpartum is the rest of your life. It's not just this 6-week period and then like, boom, you're back to normal. That's not how it happens. Postpartum is forever. And once, you have to essentially, you have to block out those messages and reprioritize so that your life becomes more enjoyable and easier to live. Because what is going to make your life easier for you and for your kids? If you look a certain way, or if you're feeling and performing and able to do the things that are important to you,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think especially with clients, it's a lot of non-scale markers that obviously we focus on in terms of how you're feeling, and are you going to the bathroom every day, stuff like that. And then also, how is your energy, and do you feel like you can accomplish the things that you're doing, and do you take time for rest and joy and all of those things? And it's like, when you look back, those 5 pounds that stress us out so much, is that really going to matter? I think it's so much harder to put yourself in that space and, like you said, block it out, but it's so important and so necessary, because
of course,
if anything's creating negative vibes, you gotta let it go.
Yeah. And it's so much easier said than done. But when you have 4 million things on your plate as a mother, it comes down to okay, what's got to go? Because you can't hold all of that in your head and in your heart anymore. There's no more room. So something's got to go. And when you're breastfeeding too, I'll add a lot of women respond differently to breastfeeding. Some women will just absolutely shed that weight off quickly. But maybe they still don't feel great. Their pelvic floor is still off. But some women will still hold on to 5 to 10 pounds when they're still breastfeeding, because their body wants to have that reserve to make milk. And so women will typically, come to me saying how do I get rid of these extra 5 to 10 pounds? I'm like, well, the only way to do that while you're still breastfeeding is if you're going to do it in an unhealthy way. And that's just not something that we can do, right? As it's not an option anymore, when your body is trying to best serve you and best serve your baby.
Absolutely. Amen. Okay, so then for just in terms of body positivity, self-love, all those types of things we were just talking about, do you have any resources or things you'd recommend, or podcasts, anything that can help women during just, again, the transition from pregnancy, postpartum, all of that, and just fitness in general?
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I love Coconuts and Kettlebells. She's the Well Fed Women podcast. So that's Noelle Tarr. She talks a lot about that stuff. I also love Diane Sanfilippo's Full Plate podcast. It's a new podcast. I don't know if you've heard of that, but she was previously like a paleo author, and now she's switched to being very anti-diet. So it's really cool to see her perspective change and how she kind of went through that journey. So I would say find Noelle Tarr for more of the body image stuff. And then for the food stuff, I would go to Diane.
It's interesting because I followed Diane like well back when I had started my Instagram account. And it was like, she was definitely with somebody, I think she's an NTP as well, but it's just crazy because, you know, and I also believe so much of that as well. And so it's crazy how you have to unlearn and be willing to make changes and, again, understand your body and how it is and figure out what works best for you, because it's okay to change, and it's okay to, you know, change the trajectory of where you're going. Well, this was awesome. I appreciated your time and all of your knowledge. So let's share with the audience. I want to know, first of all, your favorite exercises that you almost always do, or if someone was going to like start their fitness journey, what would you say are some things that they should start with?
Okay. So focusing on movement patterns versus like what's going to work certain muscles. That is huge. So instead of thinking about, oh, what's a good leg exercise, think about functional patterns. So like squatting, hinging, pressing, pulling, things like that. So my go-tos are always going to be squatting and deadlifting, because that's something that you do every day in your life, right? Especially as a mom, picking kids up from the floor. So good stability in those movements first. And then, I mean, coming from a gymnast background, I love pull-ups.
Me too.
I will always do them. Yeah.
I know, like, I feel bad. I'm always like, I can very easily do them. I have good upper body strength. My lower body strength's not great, but it's just funny how it's like the difference of, you know, it's tough. It's a really hard movement, but I love it. It's so rewarding when you can do it.
Yeah. So, 100%.
And then anything from your end, how people can support you, obviously your amazing course, all the things that you're doing, and how people can find you, all of that. We'll leave with that.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, my Instagram is right here, but right now I'm actually doing my Black Friday sale. So it's going to be through Friday, but today is the last day that you can get the deepest discount off my course. So my course is the Keeping Balance Method. That's what teaches you step by step how to do cyclical fitness for you. And it gives you a month of strength programming. I have 4 additional months for my partners of workouts. And it gives you templates, blueprints, things to make fitness work for you in a cyclical way. And so you can get $150 off the course today, as well as get a free copy of my ebook, which teaches you how to do all of that from home. So it's called Home Gym Manifest, and you're entered into a giveaway. So that's the last day for that.
There you go.
Tomorrow through Friday, and you're going to be able to get $100 off the course. But that is what's going on right now. I just started recording a podcast too, so that should be out hopefully by the end of the month. And my website is just CourtneyKeepingBalance.com. That's where I have all of my goodies. And I mainly live on Instagram. You can join my email list. That's where I live, and that's what I'm up to.
Perfect. Well, again, I love chatting with you, and you're such an inspiration for sure. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
I hope your son's okay.
He's fine. Yeah. he picks at his nose, and then it starts bleeding, and then he starts freaking out. There's blood coming out of his nose. So I was like, oh, thanks, Carmen. Oh my gosh, I didn't even see these comments come through, but yay, thank you.
I know that there were a few questions I think that might have gotten lost, but I'll see if I can go find them.
That's okay.
And post them.
Yeah.
But either way, thanks, Courtney. Have a great
Thank you so much. Bye.
Happy holidays as well.
Happy holidays to
Bye.
you. Okay, bye.